students, welcome to the PD Life Science Academy for the Happy Learning. NEET एक्झामची प्रिपरेशन जे विद्यार्थी करत आहेत त्यांच्यासाठी बेसिक कन्सेप्ट लर्निंग आणि लिंकिंग ऑफ कन्सेप्ट हे जेवढे गरजेचे आहे तेवढेच NCERT बुकमधील चॅप्टरचे कंटेंट रीड करणे आवश्यक आहे. हे करत असताना फक्त एक रीडिंग करून चालणार नाही, मल्टिपल टाइम्स रिव्हिजन होणे गरजेचे आहे. यात टाळाटाळ करणे चांगले नव्हे. आपण सेट केलेले टार्गेट अचीव करण्यासाठी PD लाईफ सायन्स अकॅडमीने सर्व स्टुडंटसाठी जे नीट एक्झामचे प्रिपरेशन करीत आहेत त्यांच्यासाठी 21 डे रीडिंग चॅलेंजची सुरुवात केली आहे. रोज एका चॅप्टरचे रीडिंग आपण कंप्लीट करणार आहोत. हे चॅलेंज ज्या विद्यार्थ्यांनी ॲक्सेप्ट केले आहे त्यांनी त्यांचे डेली टार्गेट अचीव केल्यावर कॉमेंट करून सांगायचे आहे. सो लेट्स गेट रेडी फॉर टेकिंग रीडिंग चॅलेंज. ऑल द व्हेरी बेस्ट. थँक यू.
21 day reading challenge. Day 1 reading target, chapter number 1 from NCERT textbook for class 11. Chapter number 1, the living world. How wonderful is the living world. The wide range of the living types is amazing. The extraordinary habitat in which we find the living organisms. Be it cold mountains, deciduous forests, oceans, freshwater lakes, deserts or hot springs, leaves us speechless. The beauty of galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valleys of flowers and attacking shark evoke away and a deep sense of wonder. The ecological conflicts and the cooperation among the members of population and among the population of community or even in molecular traffic inside the cell make us deeply reflect on what indeed is a life. This question has two implicit questions within it. The first is technical one and seeks the answer to what living is and opposed to the non-living, and second is the philosophical one and seek the answer to what the purpose of life is. As a scientist, we shall not attempt answering the second question. We will try to reflect on what is living. 1.1 What is living? When we try to define living, we conventionally look for the distinctive characteristic exhibited by living organism. Growth, reproduction, ability to sense the environment and mount a suitable response come to our mind immediately as a unique feature of living organism. One can add a few more features like metabolism, ability to self-replicate, self-organize, interacts and emergence to this list. Let us try to understand each of these. First is all living organisms grow. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characters of growth. A multicellular organism grows by cell division. In plants, this growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. In animals, this growth is seen only up to certain age. However, cell division occurs in a certain tissue to replace the lost cells. Unicellular organisms grow by cell division. One can easily observe this in vitro culture by simply counting the number of cells under the microscope. In majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. One must remember that increase in a body mass is considered as a growth. Non-living objects also grow if we take increase in a body mass as a criterion for growth. The mountains, boulders and sand mounds do grow. However, this kind of growth exhibited by non-living objects is by accumulation of material on the surface. In living organisms, growth is from inside. Growth, therefore, cannot be taken as a defining property of living organism. Conditions under which it can be observed in all living organisms have to be explained, and then we understand that it is a characteristic of living systems. A dead organism does not grow. Second, reproduction. Likewise, reproduction is a characteristic of living organism. In multicellular organism, reproduction refers to the production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parents. Invariably, the implicitly we refer to sexual reproduction. Organisms reproduce by asexual means also. Fungi multiply and spread easily due to millions of asexual spores, and they produce. In lower organisms like yeast and hydra, we observe the budding. In planaria, that is the flatworms, we observe the true regeneration, that is the fragmented organism regenerate the lost part of the body and become a new organism. The fungi, the filamentous algae and the protonema of mosses all easily multiply by fragmentation. When it comes to the unicellular organism like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with growth, that is increase in number of cells. We have already defined the growth as an equivalent to increase in a cell number or mass. Hence, we notice that in single cell organism, we are not very clear about the uses of these two terms, the growth and the reproduction. Further, there are the many organisms which do not reproduce, that is the mule, sterile worker bees, infertile human couples, etc. Hence, the reproduction also cannot be an all-inclusive defining characteristic of living organism. Of course, no non-living object is capable of reproducing and the replicating by itself. Third is another characteristics of the life is a metabolism. All organisms are made up of chemicals. These chemicals, small and big, belonging to the various classes, size, functions, etc., are constantly being made and changes into the some other biomolecules. These conversations are chemical reactions or metabolic reactions. There are thousands of metabolic reactions occurring simultaneously inside all living organisms, be they unicellular or multicellular. All plants, animals, fungi and microbes exhibit metabolism. Sum total of all chemical reactions occurring in our body is a metabolism. No non-living object exhibit the metabolism. Metabolic reaction can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free system, and isolated metabolic reactions or reactions outside the body of an organism performed in a test tube is neither living nor non-living. Hence, while metabolism is a defining feature of all living organisms, without exception, isolated metabolic reactions in vitro are not living things, but surely living reactions. Hence, cellular organization of the body is the defining feature of living form. Perhaps the most obvious and technical complicated features of all living organisms is this ability to sense their surrounding or environment and response to these environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical or biological. We sense our environment through our sense organs. Plant responds to the external factors like light, water, temperature, other organisms, pollutions, etc. All organisms forms the prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryotes can sense and respond to the environmental cues. Photoperiod affects the reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. All animals handle the chemical entering their bodies. All organisms, therefore, are aware of their surrounding. Human being is the only organism who is aware of himself, that is, has a self-consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, become a defining property of living organism. When it comes to the human being, it is all the more difficult to define the living state. We observe the patients lying in a coma in hospital, virtually supposed by the machine which replace the heart and lungs. The patient, otherwise brain dead, the patient has a no self-consciousness. Are such a patient who never come back to the normal life, living or non-living? In higher classes, we will come to know that all living phenomena are due to underlying the interaction. Properties of tissues are not present in a constituent cells but arise as a result of interaction among the constituent cell. Similarly, properties of cellular organelles are not present in molecular constituents of organelles but arise as a result of interaction among the molecular components comprising the organelles. This interaction results in emerging properties at the higher level of organization. This phenomenon is true in hierarchy of organizational complexity of all levels. Therefore, we can say the living organisms are a self-replicating, evolving and a self-regulating interactive system capable of responding to the external stimuli. Biology is a story of life on earth. Biology is a story of life on earth. Biology is a story of evolution of living organism on earth. All living organisms present, past, and futures are linked to the one another by sharing to the common genetic material but to varying the degrees. 1.2 Diversity in the living world. If we look around you, we see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets and other animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eyes, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observation in, the range of variety of organisms that you see would increases. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you could probably see the much greater number and kind of living organism in it. Each different kinds of plants, animals and organisms that you see represent a species. The number of species that are known and describe the range between the 1.7 to 1.8 millions. This refers to the biodiversity or the number and the types of organisms present on Earth. We should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. As stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know the plant and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place. Even within a country, probably we would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find a way and means to talk to each other, to refer to the organism we are talking about. Hence, there is a need to standardize the naming of living organism such that particular organism is known by same name all over the world. This process is called as a nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature or the naming is only possible when organism is described correctly and we know what organism the name is attached to. This is the identification. In order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established a procedure to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to the biologists all over the world. For plant, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, that is ICBN. You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved a International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, that is the ICZN. The scientific name ensures that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organism. Biologists follow a universally acceptable principle to provide the scientific name to know the organism. Each name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. These systems of providing a name with the two components called as a binomial nomenclature. The naming system given by the Carolus Linnaeus is being practiced by biologists all over the world. The naming system using a two-word format was found convenient. Let us take the example of mango to understand the way of providing the scientific name better. The scientific name of mango is written as a Mangifera indica. Let us see how it is binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents the genus, while indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. Other universal rule of nomenclatures are as follows. The first rule is biological names are generally in a Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from the Latin irrespective of their origin. Second rule, the first word in the biological name represents the genus, while second component denotes the specific epithet. Third rule, both words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined or printed in italic to indicate their Latin origin. The fourth rule is the first word denote the genus starts with the capital letter while the specific epithet start with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Mangifera indica. Name of the author appear after the specific epithet, that is the end of the biological name, and is written in the abbreviated forms. For example, Mangifera indica Linn. It indicates that this species was first described by the Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process is a classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into the convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize the groups such as the plants or animals or dogs, cats or insects. The moment we use any of these terms, we associated a certain characters with the organism in that group. What image do you see when you think of dog? Obviously, each of us, we see the dog and not a cat. Now, if we were to think a Alsatian, we know what we are talking about. Similarly, Suppose we are to say a mammals. You would of course think of animals with external ears and body hairs. Likewise in plants, if we try to talk of the wheat, the picture in each of our mind will be of wheat plant, not for a rice or any other plant. Hence all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient categories we use to study the organism. The scientific term for these categories is a taxa. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate a categories at a very different levels. Plants also form a taxa. Wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animals, mammals, dogs are all taxa. But you know that a dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. Therefore, animals, mammals and dogs represent a taxa at a different levels. Hence, based on the characteristic, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is a taxonomy. External and the internal structures along with the structure of cell, development, processes and ecological information of organism are essential and forms a basis of modern taxonomic studies. Hence the characterization, identification, classification and the nomenclature are the process that are the basic to the taxonomy. Taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own uses. In early days, human beings indeed to find the source of their basic needs of food, clothing and shelters. Hence the earlier classification were based on the uses of the various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing the more about the different kinds of organisms and their diversities, but also the relationship among them. This branch of study were referred to as the systematics. The word systematic is derived from the Latin word systema, which means the systematic arrangement of the organism. Linnaeus used the systema naturally as a title of his publication. The scope of scientific systematics was later enlarged to include the identification, nomenclature and the classification. Systematic takes into account evolutionary relationship between the organisms. 1.3 Taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process but involves a hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or categories. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called as a taxonomic category, and all categories together constitute a taxonomic hierarchy. Each category, referred to as a unit of classification, in fact represent a rank and is commonly termed as a taxon, plurally taxon. Taxonomic categories and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. The insect represent a group of organisms sharing a common features like the 3 pairs of jointed legs. It means the insects are recognizable concrete object which can be classified and thus we are given a rank or categories. Can you name other such group of organisms? Remember, group represent a category. Category further denote a rank, and each rank or a taxon in fact represent a unit of classification. These taxonomic groups or categories are distinct biological entities and are not merely morphological aggregates. Taxonomical studies of all known organisms have led to the development of common categories such as a kingdom, phylum or division for plants, class, order, family, genus and species. All organisms, including those in plants and animal kingdom, have a species as the lowest category. Now the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. The basic requirement is the knowledge of characters of an individual or a group of organisms. This helps in identifying the similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kinds of the organism as well as of other kinds of organism. 1.3.1 First is a species. Taxonomic study consider a group of individual organisms with the fundamental similarities as a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. Let us consider Mangifera indica, Solanum tuberosum, that is the potato, and Panthera leo, lion. All three names, indica, tuberosum, and the leo, represent a specific epithet, while the first word Mangifera, Solanum, and the Panthera are the genera and represent another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have the one or the more than one specific epithet representing the different organisms but having a morphological similarities. For example, the Panthera has another specific epithet called as a tigris, and Solanum includes the species like the nigrum and the melongena. Human being belongs to the species sapien, which is grouped in the genus Homo. The scientific name thus for human being is written as a Homo sapien. 1.3.2 Genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in comparison to species of other genera. We can say that the genera are aggregates of closely related species. For example, potato and brinjal are two different species but both belongs to the genus Solanum. Lion, Panthera leo, leopard, Panthera pardus, and tiger, Panthera tigris, with several common features, are all species of the genus Panthera. This genus different from another genus, Felis, which includes the cats. 1.3.3 Family. The next category, family. Family has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to the genus and the species. Families are characteristics on the basis of both vegetative and the reproductive features of plant species. Among the plant, for example, three different genera, Solanum, Petunia, and Datura, are placed in the family of Solanaceae. Among the animal, for example, genus Panthera, comprising the lion, tiger, leopard, is put along with the genus Felis, that is the cat, in the family of Felidae. Similarly, if you observe the features of cat, a dog, you will find some similarities and some differences as well. They are separated into two different families, the Felidae, Canidae, respectively. Now the 1.3.4, that is the order. We have seen this earlier that categories like the species, genus, families are based on the number of similar characters. Generally, the order and the other higher categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters. Order being a higher category is assemblage of the families which exhibit a few similar characters. The similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera includes in a family. Plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in order of the polynomials, mainly based on the floral formula, floral characters. The animal order Carnivora includes the families like the Felidae and Canida. 1.3.5 Class. This category includes the related orders. For example, order Primata, comprising the monkey, gorilla, and gibbons, is placed in a class of Mammalia along with order of the Carnivora that includes the animal like tiger, cat, and dogs. Class Mammalia has other orders also. 1.3.6 Phylum. Classes comprises the animal like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with the mammal constitutes the next higher category called as a phylum. All these based on the common features like the presence of notochord and the dorsal hollow neutral system are included in phylum Chordata. In case of the phylum, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to higher categories called as a division. 1.3.7 is a kingdom. All animals belonging to the various phyla are assigned to the highest category called as a kingdom Animalia in classification system of animals. The kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, it is a distinct and comprises of all plants from the various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups of animals and the plant kingdoms. The taxonomic categories from the species to the kingdom have been shown in ascending order, starting with the species in figure number 1.1, and this is a broad categories. However, the taxonomies have also developed a subcategories in this hierarchy to facilitate the more sound and scientific placement of the various taxa. Now the figure 1.1 taxonomic categories showing the hierarchy arrangement in a ascending order. Species, then genus, family, order, class, phylum in case of animal and division in case of plants, and lastly the kingdom. Look at the hierarchy in the figure 1.1. We can recall the basis of arrangements. Say for example, as we go higher from the species to kingdom, the number of common character goes on the decreasing. Lower the taxon, more the characteristics that are the members within the taxon share. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at a same level. Hence, the problem of classification become a more complex. Table 1.1 indicates the taxonomic categories to which some common organisms like housefly, man, mango, and wheat belongs. Table 1.1 organisms with their taxonomic categories. Common name first example is a man. Biological name is a Homo sapien, genus is a Homo, family is a Hominidae, order is a Primata, class is a Mammalia, and phylum is the Chordata. Second example, common name is a housefly, biological name is a Musca domestica, genus is a Musca, family is the Mucidae, then the order is the Diptera, class is the Insecta, and phylum is a Arthropoda. Third example is a mango, common name is a mango, biological name is a Mangifera indica, genus is a Mangifera, family is a Anacardiaceae, order is the Sapindiales, class is the Dicotyledone, and division is Angiosperm. Fourth example is a wheat, biological name is a Triticum aestivum, genus is a Triticum, family is a Poaceae, order is a Poales, class is a Monocotyledone, and division is a Angiosperm. Now 1.4 Taxonomical aids. Taxonomic study of various species of plants, animals, and other organisms are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in general in knowing our bioresources and their diversity. These studies would require a correct classification and identification of organism. Identification of organism require a intensive laboratory and field studies. The collection of actual specimen of plants and animal species is the prime source of taxonomic studies. These are also fundamental to the studies and essential for the training in the systematics. It is used for the classification of an organism, and the information gathered is also stored along with the specimen. In some cases, the specimen is preserved for further studies. Biologists have established a certain procedure and techniques to store and preserve the information as well as the specimen. Some of these are explained to help you understand the uses of these aids. 1.4.1 is a first aid is a herbarium. Herbarium is a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dried, pressed and preserved on a sheet. Further, these sheets are arranged according to the universally accepted system of classification. These specimens, along their description on herbarium sheet, become a storehouse or repository for further use. The herbarium sheet also carry a label providing the information about the date and place of collection, English, local and botanical names, family, collector's name, etc. The herbaria also serve as a quick referral system in taxonomic studies. 1.4.2 Botanical Gardens. These specialized gardens have collection of the living plants for references. The plant species in these gardens are grown for the identification purpose, and each plant is labeled indicating its a botanical or a scientific name and its family. The famous botanical garden are at New England, Indian Botanical Garden, Howrah, India, at the National Botanical Research Institute, Lucknow, India. 1.4.3 Museum. Biological museum are generally set up in the educational institute such as the schools and colleges. The museum has a collection of the preserved plants and animal specimens for study and the references. Specimens are preserved in the containers or a jar in preservative solutions. Plant and animal specimen may also be preserved as a dry specimen. Insects are preserved in insect box after collecting, killing and pinning. The larger animals like the birds and mammals are usually stuffed and preserved. The museum offers have collection of the skeleton of animals too. 1.4.4 Zoological Parks. These are the places where the wild animals are kept in a protected environments under the human care and which enable us to learn about their food, habitats and behavior. All animals in a zoo are provided as far as possible the conditions similar to their natural habitat. Children love visiting these parks, commonly called zoos. 1.4.5 Key. The key is another taxonomic aid used for the identification of plants and animals based on the similarities and dissimilarities. The keys are based on the contrasting characters, generally in a pair called as couplets. It represents the choice made between the two opposite options. This result is acceptance of only one and rejection of the other. Each statement in a key is called a lead. Separate taxonomic key are required for each taxonomic categories such as a family, genus, species for identification purpose. Key are generally analytical in nature. Flora, manuals, monographs, and catalogs are the some other means of recording descriptions. They also helps in a correct identification. Flora contains the actual account of habitat and distribution of plants of given area. This provides the index to the plant species found in a particular area. Manuals are useful in providing the information for identification of names of species found in an area. Monograph contains the information on any one taxon. Now the summary of chapter number 1, that is the living world. The living world is a rich in variety. Millions of plants and animals have been identified and described, but a large number still remain unknown. The very range of organisms in terms of size, color, habitat, physiological and morphological features make us seek the identifying the characteristics of living organisms. In order to facilitate the study of kinds and diversity of organisms, biologists have evolved a certain rules and principles for identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. The branch of knowledge dealing with these aspects is referred to the taxonomy. The taxonomic study of various species of plants and animals are useful in agriculture, forestry, industries, and in general for knowing our bioresources and diversity. The basic taxonomy, like identification, naming, and classification of organisms, are universally evolved under the international codes. Based on the resemblance and distinct differences, each organism is identified and assigned a correct scientific and biological name comprising the two words as per the biological system of nomenclature. As organisms represent or occupy a place or position in a system of classification, there are many categories or ranks are generally referred to as a taxonomic categories or taxa. All the categories constitutes a taxonomic hierarchy. Taxonomists have developed a variety of taxonomic aids to facilitate identification, naming, and classification of organisms. These studies are carried out from the actual specimen, which are collected from the field and preserved as a referral in the form of herbaria, museum, and in a biological gardens and zoological parks. It requires a special techniques for collection and preservation of specimen in herbaria and museum. Live specimen, on the other hand, of plants and animals are found in a botanical gardens or in zoological parks. Taxonomists also prepared a disseminate information through manuals and monographs for further taxonomic studies. Taxonomic key are tools that help in identification based on the characteristics. Now here is a completion of first chapter of the living world. Thank you so much.